Welcome to your additional lesson over multiplying binomials. We will use this specifically in one lesson in Module 2, Lesson 8. And so multiplying binomials means that, here's our examples of binomials. Binomial by meaning two, when we multiply two terms by these two terms. And so what is the procedure? What's the process that we're going to use? And it's this FOIL method right here, which stands for first, outer, inner, last. So here's an example color-coded for you. If I was to multiply x plus 2, which is one binomial, times x plus 4, another binomial, to use FOIL, what do I mean by my first terms? You can see right here in red, my first terms are those x and the x. In both binomials, x is that first term here. So then O outer, what are the outside terms? That's your x and your 4 on the outer. So it's the first term in this one, but the last term in this one. Then your inner is the 2 and the x, these two inside terms. And then your last, 2 and 4 are the last terms in both binomials. And so when I multiply my first terms, x times x gets me x squared. When I multiply my outer, x times 4 is 4x. When I multiply my inner terms, 2 times x gives me 2x. And then my last terms, 2 times 4 gives me 8. Then here we have like terms. 4x plus 2x gets me to 6x. And so here would be my final answer. Nothing is like terms. We have x squared, x, and a constant. So that would be my final answer. So let's try some. I'm going to try to do, well, I'll do 1, 2, and 3, and then I want you to attempt 4 on your own. Okay, and if you feel like you've got this after the first example, maybe pause the video and see if you can do 2, 3, or 4 on your own. Pause the video and try it on your own whenever you feel comfortable. So here, if I'm using FOIL, multiply your first, which is x times x, and that gets me x squared. Then my outer, which is x times -4, that's -4x. And so if you notice here, just by doing my first and my outer, what have I done essentially? I've taken this first term right here and I've distributed it to both terms in that second binomial. Then when I do my inner terms, that's 7 times x, so plus 7x. And then my last, 7 times -4 will give me -28. If you use FOIL correctly, and it's always in this form here where it's x plus or minus a number, x plus or minus a number, these middle terms are going to be your like terms. So -4x plus 7x gives me 3x. My final answer is x squared plus 3x minus 28. Okay, number 2 is a little bit more difficult because it's not just x and x is the first term. So now we have a 3m and a 5m. And so it makes it a little bit more harder because we have a variable or we have a constant in front of our variable term, but it's the same procedure. So my first is 3m times 5m. It's going to give me 15m squared. So 3 times 5 is 15. M times m is m squared. My outer is 3m times 1. So that's 3m. Oops, I almost put x, but 3m is my variable here. Then my inner, -10 times 5m. So that's going to give me -50m. And then my last, -10 times 1 is -10. Combine your like terms, and my final answer is 15m squared minus 47m minus 10. Okay, and again, I'm doing these arrows to kind of show you what we're multiplying by what, but if you notice, what am I doing for the first and the outer? That's 3m, 3m, you're distributing it to both terms. And then when you do your inner and your last, you're taking the second term and you're distributing it to both again. Now I said B because that's a B, but 3 and 4 look different, but they're the exact same. All we have to do here is expand this out. b plus 8 quantity squared is the same thing as b plus 8 times b plus 8. So now I need to use FOIL. After you expand it out, FOIL it. So b times b is b squared. B times 8 is 8b. 8 times b is 8b. And 8 times 8 is 64. Combine your like terms, and we get b squared plus 16b plus 64. Okay, pause the video and see if you can do number 4 on your own. Okay, I hope you had time to pause the video and attempt number 4. Let's go through it. I'm going to go through it a little bit faster since I'm assuming you paused the video and you have tried. So let's check our answer. First thing we have to do is expand this out. So this is 4x minus 3 times 4x minus 3. My first is 16x squared. My outer is negative 12x. My inner is negative 12x. And my last, negative times negative, is a positive 9. Combine your like terms, and we get 16x squared minus 24x plus 9. So 2 things. First, notice that I'm not just distributing this squared, because if you just distribute it, b squared would be b squared, 8 squared would be 64. If you just distribute that squared to both terms, you miss out on this middle term, this 16b, and that's important. Okay, same thing here. If you just distribute, we would get 4x squared is 16x squared, negative 3 squared is 9, but then you miss that middle term. So you have to expand this out, FOIL, combine like terms. Second thing I want to make note is in my math lab, if they use an X, you're writing your answer with an X. We're so used to multiplying binomials with a variable X that when we get to ones like this, we'll accidentally type it in my math lab as 15x squared minus 47x minus 10. Be careful, you know how my math lab is, and it can be picky. So you need to make sure that you use whatever variable that problem has.